MultimediaJay Radio Style.
Yar, follow-up discussion time on this lovely Saturday. And not necessarily following up on the Blizzard stuff I was talking about en passant earlier, but I want to talk about a little bit more about and follow up on my previous discussion about how YouTube comments have a credibility problem, and get into talking about how the likes and dislikes system has a credibility problem as well. So I've been messing around with this troll who came to me trying to mess with me, and this guy, I gotta give him credit. He's tried and tried and tried and tried to get me all worked up, and yet he has failed and failed and failed and failed to do so. And eventually, when you poke long enough, the personal attacks and the ad hominems come out, and you see that it wasn't about the argument in the first place, it was about putting someone else down. Arguing for arguing's sake. If you debunk points 1, 2, and 3, they just move on to points 4, 5, and 6 instead of actually continuing the argument because, oops, you stepped outside the boundary lines. Now, when you encounter someone who wants to mess with you, but they want to keep the argument within some narrow thing that their talking points address and not go outside the boundaries, that's when you've run into somebody who isn't interested in listening. So there's really no such thing as civil discourse with this individual anyway, so you're wasting your time even continuing in the first place. Either way, I'm not wasting my time. Through not giving him the responses that he was looking for, I have pushed him right to the point where, if he hasn't already, he's going to play some kind of I win card and then strut about how he won the argument, when in reality, I just chose not to continue messing with this guy. He's already edited most of what he's posted, very easy to see if you have email notifications turned on, by the way. And now this is the part where we just quietly do other things, and the ants and pants stuff builds up, and if the guy can't control himself, we'll see back-to-back comments and responses, or, as I'm already seeing right now, back-to-back edits. And as he slowly starts sounding crazier and crazier, as these folks do if they don't realize what's going on, ask yourself this question: who really wins the argument in a situation like that? I also don't have to use this encounter as inspiration for a discussion about how the likes and dislikes system on YouTube have a credibility problem as well. But hey, why not? It all goes together. So let's talk about the likes and dislikes system. So the podcast that sparked all of this was my counter-argument to the prevailing talking points narrative about bashing Blizzard incessantly that is currently going on, and I don't think the China situation is why it's going on. I think that even without the China situation, it would still be trendy to bash Blizzard just for BFA, and the current state of modern WoW, as evidenced by the discussion about Blizzard products before the China situation happened. Pretty straightforward, but this isn't about WoW. It's not about Blizzard, it's not about Hearthstone, it's not about Blitzchung. All of that is just examples of what's going on in action. So I made a podcast going against the grain of bashing Blizzard, which is trendy right now, and it was trendy before the China situation became a thing. And it got a lot of dislikes. Really? It's trendy to bash Blizzard and say nothing but negative stuff about World of Warcraft, etc. And so going against the same 6 or 7 things that the prevailing narrative talks about earns you a lot of dislikes on YouTube? Who would have thought? So here's my next question. How many of the dislikes that I've received on videos where I've actually decided to still give Blizzard a chance are actually because people dislike the video and not because somebody else filled their head with something and now they're just clicking by default because, oh, we stood up for Blizzard, let's dislike it. Dislike campaigns are a thing. You get a bunch of people on a forum or something somewhere that dislike something, they find a video from somebody saying something else. Of course there'll be people clicking dislike just to go along with the crowd because it's what the other people in the group are doing. Same thing too with personal squabbles or malicious subscribers. They don't like you, but they subscribe to you anyways, And even if they're never going to post a nasty comment or anything because they just want to mess with you without you being able to do anything about it, they are just subscribing to receive notifications so they can dislike every single thing that you upload. Do any of these examples have anything to do with someone disliking the content? No, there's something else going on, like a dislike campaign, or you just plain don't like somebody, so you dislike their content no matter what. In both cases, you have dislikes that don't really mean what you would think that they would mean. Over on the like side of things too, this one's a little more straightforward, because you don't have to look very far to see an example of likes that don't necessarily mean that someone liked an upload. Just watch any big established channel that follows the SOPs and whatnot, and has calls to action and all that formal stuff, and maybe even some advertising as part of the video that you have to keep constantly skipping by with your right arrow key, and you know it's going to go obsolete someday, and sadly they won't be able to do anything about it because it was part of the video when it was uploaded, unless they of course use the YouTube editor to insert a hard cut after the fact and go to all that trouble. But when you have a situation where clicking like on a video is more like, oh, it's just a formality, or it's just something you do, or it's something that you do because the YouTuber's like, hey, don't forget to like this video and don't forget to subscribe and click the bell. Well, that introduces questionability into the likes side of this system as well. So likes and dislikes, they both have credibility problems. And quite frankly, even if YouTube decided to get rid of the dislike button and just go likes only, like certain other sites are doing, it would discourage abusing the dislike button in the sense of, haha, I have a way to damage another channel somehow. But it would still not solve the problem with likes not always having to be legitimate either. So here's the situation. I remember seeing over on Dailymotion, there was no dislike button, there were only like buttons at one point. And I was like, yeah, well, this gets past the whole issue with disliking campaigns. That way, if somebody makes something that people don't like, they just won't get as high of a score on the likes as they normally do. Makes sense, but even if you eliminate the credibility problems of the dislike system by removing the dislike system and making it so that instead of liking or disliking, people either like something or they don't like something, so your ratio of views to likes or whatnot starts to matter more, it still will not solve the problem of the credibility issues on the like side. The bottom line is that internet voting systems have numerous ways to be gamed, rigged, or represent something other than what is appearing on the screen. Reviews have the same problems too. If you've ever had to deal with a company's AstroTurf reviews, do some digging if you want to know what AstroTurf is, but I'll give you something to chew on here. It basically means fake grassroots. So an AstroTurf review would be when a company influences an individual to post as an individual a positive review about their product. So it's not totally objective either, but it's a way of getting some positive feedback out there, even if it isn't just because someone actually liked a product or service. So with all of these problems, I have to wonder, why does YouTube even still have a like-dislike system? Then again, it replaced a star rating system, which basically had the same problems. Except now, of course, you had very rarely, I'm guessing, people clicking anything other than 1 star or 5 stars. So you would have creators that would be bugging you to 5-star the video, and you would have people that didn't like certain creators like, oh, I'm going to 1-star everything. So the same issues, it just appeared differently as opposed to likes and dislikes. Likes and dislikes, at least, is a little bit more straightforward. But it suffers from the same inherent problems as the old star system did. And of course, in both cases, there can be credibility issues with both. Plus, there's the long-standing loophole where blocking someone doesn't block them on YouTube as much as it used to. So if you tick someone off and they block you, and you still want to mess with their channel, you can just dislike everything they upload until you get bored with it. That's a thing too, and it even further erodes the credibility of the like and dislike system. So here's my question. If the best advice that somebody can give a human being is to take likes and dislikes with a grain of salt, they'll often follow the trends of what's going on anyways. So in the case of my Blizzard discussion, it's trendy to bash Blizzard, and I decided to actually do a counter argument And that way, if someone came after me with a counter argument, all they're doing is just restating the talking points that I was already responding to in the first place, so they weren't actually treading any new ground anyways. But if we know that going against the grain enough eventually makes it trendy for people to dislike a video, if the best advice that human beings can receive regarding the like-dislike system is to take it with a grain of salt, how much do likes and dislikes influence the algorithm? Do they influence it a little too much relative to the inherent issues that likes and dislikes have? To round out the discussion, I suppose I should probably also mention that the subscriber system isn't all that it's cracked up to be either. There are regular problems, of course, with folks not seeing uploads, YouTube maintaining a proprietary element of whether or not to show subscribers the stuff they subscribe to, and it being technically a little on the difficult side to get something a little more open and standard like RSS working with YouTube subscriptions. So when I talk about various features on the platform not really doing what they're supposed to do, I hope this gives you some basic examples of how this is the case. Now, YouTube could improve all of these systems to make them a little more reliable, but that might require some technical work behind the scenes to get everything working right. I'm talking, of course, about gating comments, likes, and dislikes behind a certain amount of watch time from somebody's account. Basically eliminating the ability of someone to get all their friends to dislike a video without them actually watching it. Like, hey, this video sucks, go dislike it. Hey, okay. Hey, let's meet for drinks later this evening. Yeah, that sort of nonsense. The technical work would probably come from mobile users jumping on and off of Wi-Fi networks and whatnot, where they might watch a video in chunks or something like that. And then, of course, there's the whole 10-hour videos thing where 10 hours of this, 10 hours of that. Do you really want people to have to watch all 10 hours of something before they start joking about, this is 10 hours of a fan running or something like that? There's also a way around that, of course. It's also very easy. It just takes a while, so you have to put in a time investment, but at least it puts in some effort in terms of messing with the various systems. And of course, I'm talking about you want to mess with someone's video via dislikes and whatnot, you just leave it playing with the audio muted at like 144p or something while you do other stuff on your computer. And then when it's done playing, you come back and you do what you were going to do anyways. But at least that time gates things. The whole point of this idea of improving the systems is to make it so that it takes effort to mess with them. So I don't know, maybe that is something that YouTube should consider. And the same thing too with some of the ideas I've had for YouTube systemically punishing people for abusing the systems as well. So for example, let's suppose you like Fortnite, but there's a certain Fortnite streamer you absolutely can't stand, and whenever they upload to YouTube, you're disliking every single thing that they upload. Have the algorithms interpret those dislikes as don't show you as much Fortnite stuff. So you have to choose between wanting to see more Fortnite stuff and wanting to continue messing with that one Fortnite streamer who posts highlights over to YouTube that you can't stand. Things like that. I think there's definitely some things that YouTube could do on their end to improve this whole situation where likes, dislikes, and of course the subscriber system even have issues with how they run, and how the results of things like the likes and dislikes system aren't always what they appear to be because of inherent flaws within the system. And by the way, before we wrap up this discussion, I should probably also mention where on earth did that gigantic like to dislike ratio come from that you're seeing in the picture for this segment? Well, this like-dislike bar is very infamous indeed, and it is from a YouTube video that is very infamous for being trendy to dislike, and therefore calls into question a lot of the dislikes that are on the video as to whether people were just doing it because it was trendy to dislike this video. And some folks in the comments are even posting about how they're coming back years later to remove their dislikes because they never really disliked the video. They were just disliking it because it was cool to do so once upon a time. And that, of course, is Rebecca Black's Friday song. Yeah, one of the most disliked videos of all time, probably the most disliked video of all time in some years' records and whatnot. But yeah, a wonderful, wonderful example where dislikes do not always mean that folks actually dislike a video on YouTube. I hope this has illustrated where I'm coming from on these issues with YouTube and how it operates, at least a little, for some of you folks out there who've been wondering what the heck I've been talking about when I mentioned that some of these systems have credibility problems these days. The platform itself has its issues, and those issues change every year, but recent years have been more depressing than others. And in terms of moving the feedback on the YouTube experience beyond those anonymous blah blah corporate surveys, this sort of stuff is probably a pretty decent way to do so, at least in terms of getting other folks on this platform aware of what its issues are. This is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.